Right now I'm on a train in Germany that should have its last stop in the city, that it's not really there. I'm on my quest to prove one of the best hidden conspiracy theories in the whole world. One whole city that appears on the maps, train tickets and even postcards. It's not really there. And this conspiracy starts to get outlines of reality because this train is slowly getting empty and a couple of passengers that are actually here are probably paid actors. But how I really got into this situation? Everything started a couple days ago. In the modern informational era, we at least once wondered if the information that was served to us was actually true or somehow manipulated. Social media, trends, artificial algorithms, we cannot help but wonder if our reality is somehow photoshopped like Kardashian on the morning after the big party. Bots, trends, algorithms, vaccines, QAnons, flat earthers and rappers' Rolexes. What is true and what is not, and how to tell the difference?
Obviously, as anybody else in the 21st century, I went online to investigate how we can protect ourselves from misinformation, and I was sucked into the dark rabbit hole. Conspiracy theories are almost old as humanity, and they can certainly outlive their creators. But then one really unusual internet post drew my attention. On the 16th of May 1994, Achim Held, a computer science student at the University of Kiel, offered the world a new and even wilder proposition. On the obscure internet forum, he claims that the city of Bielefeld, Germany, does not exist, but its illusion propagated by various forces. He posts 3 really simple deterministic questions to all of the readers. Do you know anybody from Bielefeld? Have you ever been to Bielefeld? Do you know anybody who has ever been to Bielefeld?
And of course, most of the forum members answered negatively. A couple of those who answered with yes were actually removed from the forum, obviously as they were part of the conspiracy theory and they were paid by government to make people believe that Bielefeld actually exists.
There is overwhelming proof that this city doesn't really exist. You just need to dig deep. Unfortunately, Google Maps show Bielefeld on a map, but they must be the part of the problem. There was no other way but to check it out for myself.
Hi, my name is Vladislav Radak. I'm a writer and mathematician, and this is Fabric of Life, a show where we try to answer humanity's most compelling questions. From great writers to forgotten paintings, from complex statistics to hidden places. We always go one step further. And this week, you and me will go on a quest to find a German city that shouldn't really exist. Let me take you on an adventure.
Hello, Instagram.
Bad boy. Run wild. I'm on a mission and I won't stop. No destination.
Spoiler alert, German city of Bielefeld really exists, all with its citizens who are not paid actors, bars, shops, restaurants, cafes and parks. Tucked in the northwest, with its 300,000 people, it's the 18th biggest city in Germany. But one drunk student joke almost 3 decades ago made it really popular and part of conspiracy.
In 1993, a couple of drunk students argued that the city does not exist, deriving it from a German wordplay. One student said to the other, "Das gibt's doch gar nicht," a phrase comparable to "I don't believe it," signifying disbelief or surprise. However, its literal translation is "that does not exist," spinning a joke that Bielefeld doesn't exist, and that joke made it to the internet, where it, fueled by German non-existent humor, spread into more gags and funny conspiracy theories.
And it never got old, and here we are on this beautiful day for a city tour and a cup of coffee, and to discuss something even more important, and that is, why do people believe in conspiracies?
Although conspiracy beliefs can occasionally be based on rational analysis of the evidence, most of the time they are not. As a species, one of the greatest strengths is our ability to find meaningful patterns in the world around us and to make casual inferences. We sometimes, however, see patterns and casual connections that are not really there, especially when we feel that events are beyond our control.
They are called cognitive biases, and they characterize the way we process information.
You probably know about confirmation bias. Proportionality bias, our innate tendency to assume that big events may have even bigger causes, may also explain our tendency to accept conspiracies. But there is a broader term to describe those biases that might even be signs of mental problems. Apophenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between seemingly unrelated things.
Now, let's take an example of a fair coin. And for you, every coin is fair because there is exactly 50% probability that you get tails and 50% probability that you get heads. And then you toss it 5 times. Let us assume you get 5 tails in a row. Now your intuition might tell you that there is higher chance for the 6th toss to get heads. But unfortunately, science, in this case probability theory, states something different. There is exactly 50% chance for you to get heads again and 50% chance of you to get tails. And now let's take an example that you toss this coin 99 times and you get 99 tails in a row. Your intuition might tell you, or your gut feeling, that heads are now in order. So for the 100th time there is like a higher probability that you can get heads, but unfortunately that is not true because those are independent probabilities. This is called gambler's fallacy.
People who regularly gamble often fall prey to the gambler's fallacy. They may perceive patterns or meaning in random numbers, often interpreting the pattern to indicate an outcoming win. But if you watch one game long enough without scientific understanding, you might start seeing patterns as well. Scientists agree that seeing a meaningful pattern within randomness is a common occurrence throughout modern culture. Dr. Eric Oliver, University of Chicago political science professor, believes that all of us lie on a scale between rational and intuition. Needless to say, our intuition is oftenly wrong, but it's deeply rooted in our culture, belief system, and upbringing.
The rational part of our mind is transparent for most of the time. We can see clear logic, deduction, and actually find our way around our cognitive biases and mistakes that we make. On the other side, our intuition part of our mind comes from a very dark, murky and unconscious part of our soul, and it's really hard to be grasped by the science.
It's been something that poets and philosophers have struggled with for centuries trying to understand. Dr. Eric Oliver believes that our intuitions are based on our emotions. When we're feeling uncertainty about the world, it generates a lot of anxiety, which is an uncomfortable position for us. We spend a lot of our lives trying to reduce our anxiety, producing powerful, natural inclinations.
This professor came to this realization through insightful and brilliant conversation with his son, who was only 5 at the time.
And children are great intuitionists. And my son one night was just convinced there was a monster in the closet. And after 20 minutes of looking in the closet and turning on the lights and trying to rationalize with him and telling him that there's no monster in the closet, no monster in the closet, and he finally turned and looked at me and he said, "You know, Dad, if there's no monster in the closet, then why am I afraid?"
Conspiracy theories are the way for people to exert control over complex or unstable systems. Dr. Eric Oliver presents a series of uncomfortable questions to his research responders. One of them goes as follows: would you rather sleep in the laundered, clean pajamas once worn by Charles Manson, or would you rather pick up a nickel from the ground and put it in your mouth?
And not surprising enough, more than 60% of people chose the nickel, which is, rationally speaking, far more dangerous. But the idea that Charles Manson somehow magically had a contact with the cloth that they are wearing presents a much bigger wave of uncertainty.
So now, you probably want to ask me, is there any way to fight conspiracy theorists? And some of you probably even tried over the internet and failed miserably.
It went well, almost like the Bielefeld conspiracy joke that brought us to this beautiful city that some claim it doesn't exist. Do you know anyone from the city? The government pays him to say so. See it on the maps? Of course, government controls the internet. What's at stake for conspiracy theorists in this understanding isn't simply explaining a confusing world, but asserting some kind of power over or within it.
People who feel powerless are most likely to believe in conspiracy theories, and this is their way to somehow rectify or adapt to really anxious situation.
Scientific evidence shows that conspiracy theorists are more likely to belong to isolated, marginalized groups. The only way to fight conspiracy theorists is to invite them to be part of your community and not bring up explicit subjects. They will see that you are alive and well after receiving the vaccine and that microchip does not operate your brain. You can both enjoy the sunset without mentioning the curvature of the horizon.
Being part of the community that relies on science can help us all relieve our anxiety and uncertainty. And how you can protect yourself of falling victim to believing in conspiracy theory? Well, that is much harder.
Expanding your knowledge sometimes isn't enough. If you're not an active scientist on a subject, you're better off listening to scientists who are.
As our colleague and fellow scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson eloquently put it, one of the biggest challenges of modern society with informational overflow is to know enough about the subject to think that you're right, but not enough to know that you're wrong.
And at the very end of this journey, we were able to find the famous memorial to Bielefeld conspiracy, a joke that put this town on the map of the world. In 2019, citizens of Bielefeld concluded that the joke is not funny anymore, putting this 400-pound stone as the end of the doubt. Hey, Vladislav Radek once again here. If you like this video, subscribe to this channel. Every week we are taking you on new adventures. We try to answer humanity's biggest questions, and Italy and Portugal adventures are coming soon. Until then, stay tuned and curious, and don't forget, libraries still exist.